This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. Washington National Cathedral replaces Confederate stained glass windows with social justice theme. Washington National Cathedral revealed 4 new racial justice theme stained glass windows to replace others honoring Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson. The new windows show demonstrations during a march or protest carrying signs that say fairness and no foul play as the group marches across the 4 windows. Marshall, a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient, known for depictions of Black lives, says the windows reinforce ideals and aspirations embodied in the cathedral structure and remind us that we can be better and do better than we did yesterday. The cathedral belongs to the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, D.C., but is often used for national services. Leaders first began considering replacing the windows in 2015 when then-Dean Gary Hall called for their removal after a white supremacist fatally shot 9 black churchgoers at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. For decades, the windows displayed within the cathedral's main worship space depicted Lee, Jackson, and scenes from their lives and military careers. They were installed in 1953 to foster reconciliation between the North and the South. Some of those windows included Confederate flags, and the cathedral's leadership voted in 2016 to remove those panes and replace them with plain glass. The National Cathedral commissioned writer Elizabeth Alexander to write a poem for the new windows. The poem will be carved into the stone beneath the new windows in the coming months. Well, 1953, that's a time in our past that we're maybe not super proud of. That was still during the Jim Crow era. That was still during segregation. That was not a proud time. And even so, how disappointing that a major religious structure, I mean the National Cathedral, would have done that. First, I'm uncomfortable with nationalistic and military images in church anyway. We don't talk about kingdoms. We talk about God's kingdom, God's family, God's community. We don't sing about, Christian soldiers. We sometimes borrow the tune, but completely different words. We don't have an American flag or any national flag in our worship space. I just don't like nationalistic and military images in a worship space. It's the wrong message. It's its own form of idolatry. I don't like it. And that alone could have prevented this fiasco. But also, to try to appease the segregated and racist South, that was also bad leadership, bad move. It was the 50s. Luckily, we see it as problematic now. Luckily, they're doing something about it now. And that's always the best we can do when we screw up, is try to make it right, try to do better, acknowledge our screw up and make it better. That's repentance. Try to have a change of heart, change of attitude, doing things differently going forward. But that it's a painful reminder of who we've been. And I think it would be naive to imagine that that's not who we still are, really. So it's a painful reminder that we are just not the heroes even of our own story as we grew up hearing we were. And so this is not only a chance to correct this design in a building, it is a reminder of how much we need to correct in the designs of our own souls.
So if I get the timeline right, this was done in 1953. Slavery ended when?
The 1860s.
The war was over when?
Yes.
And the war was over when? So
about 90 years prior.
So who was really trying to appease who in this North and South thing at that point in 1953?
It was the same time that these Confederate statues were being erected, though.
Yes.
Not during or right after the war, in the next century to appease racists.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm like many, we've probably all been to the Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C., the National Cathedral several times.
Beautiful.
Love it for its architectural work, love it for its design. And I'm glad that this could be challenged. I'm glad it be discussed, and I'm glad a change could take place. And that leads me to the question of what's next for the National Cathedral. I hope that is a beginning for some other things to come down.
Right. I just am mindful when it comes to National Cathedral. This is to be the church for all people here in the United States, to be a church for all people. And when you have those kinds of designs, no, it is obviously not a church for all people, not where all people are welcome. And I was going to say something else and my mind just went blank.
There's also a Roman Catholic National Cathedral in D.C., and I forget its official name. But the official name of the National Cathedral, the Episcopal one, is the Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul, I believe. But we call it the National Cathedral, and so
Right.
you would expect that. But that was not the cathedral for people of African descent
No.
No, obviously not.
in 1953. Clearly.
Right.
Well, I've been to that cathedral. It is a beautiful cathedral that sits on a hill, and it's just wonderful to walk up to. I never thought to look at the stained glass windows to see what was going on up there. And as everybody here has said already, I am glad that the leadership of the church understood the problem that they had with those windows. It's a church. It's not a monument to the craziness that has happened in this country in the past. We've already talked about how long ago the Civil War had ended. Before that, we've already talked about how we grow. And let's give the National Cathedral a little credit for realizing, oops, we made a boo-boo. We may have a couple more that we need to fix, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we're in the grace business. We don't want to be completely just unforgiving and judgy and mean about stuff. And in the 20th century, celebrating an atrocity of the 19th century and not correcting it till the 21st century does deserve a little bit of a.
That was my other point. It's like it took so long.
Yes.
It took so very long. I mean, give lots of people grace. They're making it right now. And 2015, 2016, that was not that long ago. That was less than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now that kind of thing is happening.
And maybe they will become the catalyst for other churches to review their stained glass windows. So, maybe they can be the
That would
leader.
be the beautiful part of the
the leader in
Right,
all of this.
right.
They can become the catalyst for that. So thank you to them.
I like
We are excited to tell you about our next adventure with our Global Fellowship. In 2024, we'll be going to where the hills are alive as we explore Austria and Alpine Europe for Gay Oktoberfest. Space is extremely limited, so make sure to go to happeningout.travel/sunshine to reserve your space now.
Would you like to join the Queer God Squad on a special winter cruise in 2024? Well, now you can. You will visit Cozumel, Mexico, Grand Cayman, and Ocho Rios, and you can even add an open bar and Wi-Fi. Join us by going to happeningout.travel/sunshine.